Hello and welcome to the very first of the beginner gardening series. In this first episode, I want to tackle the top essential tools that every gardener needs. I want to show you and tell you what you truly and only need in order to start gardening. I know for a lot of people, gardening can be considered quite an expensive hobby. When you walk into a shop or a garden centre or even our good friends home base, you can be overwhelmed by the amount of garden tools and things that there are. I'm going to share with you the essentials, what you need in order to get started. No matter how old you are, some people get the gardening bug in their 20s. Some people wait until they're 65. No matter your age, or even perhaps even your skill level, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. So I think without a doubt, the most used thing that you will have as a gardener will be these secateurs. Definitely number one on the garden essentials. Now, is there anything specific to look for with secateurs? I like a spring-loaded pair. I think they're just more durable. A couple of other key points when it comes to secateurs. These will get blunt over time, so it is worth having a whetstone. You can pick these up pretty much anywhere, even from our good friend Jeff. When it comes to sharpening these, because they will get blunt over a growing season, and trust me, using a sharp pair makes your life a lot easier. All you do is take them apart with a screwdriver and you simply run the blade like so, making sure to follow the curve. A more in-depth look at how to maintain gardening tools, please leave a comment down below and I'll make a video for you. The other thing that you really want to have when it comes to secateurs or even maintaining them is either matches or a lighter. The reason being is that, for example, if you've got fungal infection happening within your plants and you're deadheading, the spores will stay onto your blade. That is one of the key ways that diseases spread in a garden, is when these have not been sanitized. All you have to do is simply run your lighter or lit match right along the blade for about a few seconds until everything's nice and sterilized. If you do that, you'll never have any problems deadheading, cutting branches. Secateurs, you can't live without them. Your second gardening essential, of course, is gloves. Now, a couple of key points when it comes to looking for gloves, purchasing gloves. I like gloves that are quite thin because me personally, I really like to feel what I'm doing in the garden. A lot of people will be familiar with these. Now, these really rough, heavy leather gloves that are quite thick are great for when you're dealing with things like rose bushes, for example. Because the thickness, of course, you'll guarantee not to get pricked, you'll guarantee not to cause a tear in your leather. Super long wearing, super durable. As well, if you're dealing with logs or you're doing activities like wood cutting, these are most likely preferred. However, for day-to-day gardening, I really enjoy a nice, thin rubber glove. Still long wearing, durable, a nice pair of rubber gloves just feel more like you're kind of just wearing an extra set of hands, okay? You can still feel things and they're great for everyday garden use. A little thing that you might want to consider, especially if you plan to do a lot of gardening in summer, consider the breathability of your thin gloves, okay? Just so your hands don't get sweaty. Your third most used thing as a gardener will undoubtedly be one of these. So this great engineered thing is a shovel, not your regular shovel. A couple of key points as to why you might want something like this. Typically, we're familiar with a shovel that has the metal up until here, it joins itself to some wood, and then it's wood all the way up. I'm going to show you something. Yeah, this is a possibility. Now, this was a beautiful shovel at one point in its life, and I've saved it because it makes for quite a great paperweight. However, if you don't want this to happen, what this type of design fails to achieve is the kind of strength and durability to dig out large shrubs or even tree roots, and that is how I managed to snap it. They are beautiful things, and for most people, this type of shovel will work absolutely fine. I quite like a spade kind of edge there, slightly pointed. Remember, most of the time when we use this, it'll be for going into soil, and of course that will make it easier. However, I just want to keep touching it. This, you will never encounter that problem. As you can see, that design, I mean, I've taken this under large shrubs and it has no give. A thinner spade head right there, and as well you can see the serration. So something like this is great if you have a lot of mature shrubs that you think you actually want to take out, you're renovating a garden. That almost acts like a saw. So as you're digging in and you're trying to take out roots, it's quite handy. As well, super ergonomic handle, 2 points of contact there. I mean, it's just lovely. Not necessary, but lovely. Speaking of garden maintenance, I should have cleaned these before I made the video. For everyone's favorite, I mean a kid's favorite, great for children and adults alike, your garden trowel. This little thing you think is non-essential. I mean, a shovel does pretty much the same job. Bear in mind, a shovel, you have to be standing, super awkward to use when you're close to the ground. And of course, as gardeners, we spend a lot of time near the ground. And some things just don't require a shovel. This, I would consider an essential, non-negotiable. Having a shovel and a trowel will guarantee that you can dig large plants, small plants, seedlings, some minor weeding. All garden jobs can be achieved with just these two. Next on our list, watering can. Anything to look for when it comes to a watering can. You want a long spout. Why is that? So you don't have to reach over and keep bending and bending. One of the key things that starts to go as we age, of course, are our backs. And gardening can be quite labor and back intensive, not necessarily because we're trying to lift heavy things, but because we keep putting ourselves at angles that are quite simply uncomfortable and require a lot of core strength. Hence why you want or should look for something with a long spout. That way you more or less can stand up straight and you can do your watering even when things are just out of arm's reach. Another little handy thing to look for when it comes to picking your watering can is the ability to take off the little shower head nozzle. Why? Because, for example, when we are planting shrubs, when we're planting new plants in, they require a great deal of water to be placed at the base of those roots. We want to really compact the soil that we've just placed on top of the plant down, and we need a lot of water for that. Having the ability to use your watering can like this makes that job so much easier, because of course way more water comes out. This, good luck. Also, a minor note when it comes to watering cans, if you've ever picked up some liquid fertilizer, you will read that everything is measured to be mixed at typically 4.5 litres. This watering can is 9 litres. For most people, that might be too heavy. If so, what I would recommend that you do is get 2 small watering cans. That way, you can be using one while you're filling another. It saves you a little bit of time and a little bit of walking. Unless, of course, you really like walking, you want to get your steps up, then by all means, use one watering can. Another item that I really have never really seen talked about, but I think is absolutely essential, is a simple container, like a big kind of medium-sized, non-discrete container. Why? Because sometimes a wheelbarrow is too big and cumbersome and you're only doing small little garden work. Maybe you're just moving one plant, you don't want any of that dirt going on the lawn. A nice plastic, lightweight little container next to you while you're doing your garden work, I think is essential. The utility that it brings, the mess that it stops, it is really an underrated item to just have on you. Next on this list, and what I think has actually become essential from perhaps a non-essential or a luxury to an essential item is a water butt. Most of you will have a gutter or somewhere to attach one. It saves you a lot on watering and as well being great for the environment. It rains a tremendous amount in this country, and especially if you've gotten into houseplants, rainwater is actually more beneficial for your houseplants and garden plants than water coming from your taps. It doesn't have to be a huge thing, it doesn't have to be a giant water tank, it can only be small, but trust me, every little bit helps on this journey towards sustainability. One of the cheapest ways to start gardening is, of course, with a pack of seeds. As long as you have sun, soil, and water, you can grow pretty much anything from seed. Some of you might want to take the deep plunge into seed propagation, buying little containers for them, little seedling trays, and a whole series of pots ranging from 5 centimeters and all the way up to 2 liters, which is great. If you have the money to spend and get all the kit, by all means. However, the most simplest way to start propagating and create your own little greenhouse is by simply cutting a milk jug in half. Take a milk jug, cut it in half, put some soil in. Very simple. Sprinkle your seeds, put the top back on, tape it shut, and take the lid off your milk. And there you have a little aerated greenhouse. And of course, it only cost you a pint of milk. There are so many ways to create the environments that seeds need, and it can be done with everyday household objects or things that you're already buying from the grocery store. And in saying that, I would consider that whatever you use is essential, because I do think that seeds give every single gardener the best value for money. And as well, probably one of the most rewarding things you can do as a gardener, to watch something sprout from a seed and grow all the way to a big, beautiful plant. Now, this is going to be another kind of controversial for the essential list, but I would say a hoe, a Dutch hoe. No, get your mind out of the gutter. I don't know if that's going to cause any problems, but we're not even monetized, so I don't think it matters. Now, why would I put this into the essentials category? One of the most begrudging activities within gardening and in garden maintenance is weeding. We don't want to do it. We don't want to have to sit there knees deep in soil, pulling out little weeds, trying to pick up all the roots. What if I told you that, of course, the long handle means that we don't really need to bend over. We've got great reach, and if we go out in the garden in early spring, all we have to use is this end and rough up the soil just like this, where those little pesky weeds are starting to show. And that is our weeding done for probably a good couple of months. Now, we can't really get the same reach with a shovel. The weight as well of a shovel makes it quite an inconvenience to use it in the same manner in which you would use a hoe. That is why, for me, a Dutch hoe is an essential garden item. Trust me, it'll save you time, it'll save you backache, and I think those are very important. And the penultimate essential for your garden, I think, is some Wellington boots, or any rubberized waterproof boot that you can find. Now, they could be ankle high, I prefer knee high. Now, we all have footwear that is deemed purely for the outside. This is my gardening shoes, these are my walking boots, these are the things that get muddy. I will say I've had all of those things, yet I keep going to one thing, and that, of course, is the Wellington boot. Easy to just slip in and out of. It goes up to my knees, so I never have to really worry about my trousers getting dirty. They are the best thing, I think, in terms of footwear. However, to each their own, and if you can replace that with a waterproof walking boot or anything that you feel comfortable in, fair game. The last essential might not be essential for you. A couple of these things, of course, depend on the size of your garden and what is around you. However, there is no replaceable thing for this next item, and that, of course, is a rake. Nothing does a similar job. You cannot replace it with a shovel. You cannot replace it with a trowel. A rake, I mean, all you have to do is go outside and try picking up all the dead leaves with your hands on a windy day, and you will realize that the humble garden rake is a true garden essential. Unless, of course, you don't have any deciduous trees. Then it's really not essential. And that concludes our garden essentials. But wait, there are quite a few everyday items that I would consider not essential, but if you either have the money or you have a very specific task or a very specific need, then perhaps they get bumped up into the essential category, or at least worth looking into. And those are, ta-da, flippers. No, I don't know what these are called. These are grabbers, big grabbers. I'm gonna grab you. Grabbers, grab. What are these for? When you're raking your leaves, especially when there's even an ounce of wind, one of the most painful, annoying, horrible to do garden jobs is, of course, putting the leaves somewhere, even on your compost heap, into bags. It is a pain. It can be a nightmare. I thought that these were a gimmick until I used them. Basically, the principle is you sit back and you grab just like this, and wow, the amount of leaves that you can get in one load of these. I think if you've got the money to spare, or you have a lot of deciduous trees and shrubs around you and you're tired of picking up leaves, these things are fantastic. However, not truly essential. Next on our list, almost essential, but not quite, I think, because you could always just put them in your container, would be a little garden caddy, just like this. Okay? A nice little thing that you can store your secateurs and bits and bobs. And of course, the handle makes it very easy to carry out your garden equipment on a nice gardening day. In here, I've got a perhaps gardening non-essential that is worth it. That is garden string or twine. If you have a lot of climbing plants, if you have lots of things that kind of go floppy and sway or are prone to getting snapped, things like delphiniums, or you've got lilies in your borders, you might need to stake and tie those things. I always will prefer to use garden twine as opposed to clips, because clips really restrict a plant's movement and sway. And I do think that is an underrated aspect of growing plants, is movement in wind and looking natural. So with string, you can adjust the length, and therefore you can adjust the sway and the kind of uprighted nature of your plants. What else do we have in here? Another gardening non-essential. Now, again, this is completely relative to you. For those of you that have tried to plant en masse, especially at this time of year, loads of spring bulbs. I'm talking 100, 200, 300, 1,000 daffodil bulbs. Then you will have realized, had you not had a bulb planter, just how laborious and horrible that task can be. It is absolutely backbreaking. You can get things like this. Don't look at me like that. This little dibber goes into the soil, and these markings represent different lengths at which you plant different sized bulbs. You simply lay then your soil on the top of the hole you've just done, as well as your bulb. Things like this make painful jobs quite a bit easier. However, for the mere fact that not all of us are going to go en masse in our bulb planting into gardens, a lot of us plant bulbs in containers, I'm going to call that any bulb planter is not essential. Another non-essential but super handy item, I think, to have some kind of knee pads or a kneeling pad. We spend a lot of time in the garden kneeling, whether it be to do with weeds, whether it be to do new planting. We spend a lot of time close to the soil. And depending on what our ground is like, be it wet be it rocky, it can be quite uncomfortable. Knee pads will be an absolute saving grace in this scenario. So for some of you, I would say that this is essential. However, due to it not being essential, we find it here. A full knee pad as well, if you flip it around, can act as a great single step. Sometimes in the garden, those few sticks or that little thing that you need to cut is just slightly out of reach. And flipping a kneeling pad over to create a little step is so much easier and better than having to go and get your ladder. Another non-essential but worth looking into would be loppers, would be hedge cutters, also electric trimmers or cutters or shears for your hedges. Now, you might not have a hedge. You might think to yourself, don't worry, I don't want to buy those things. I have the hedge people come by twice a year and they do it all for me, clean the stuff up, take it, and Bob's your uncle. However, it's quite expensive. And if you did want to take up doing your own hedges, or even if you had evergreen shrubs in your garden and you wanted to start to maybe create some shapes and have a little bit of fun, try something new, then you need this. And of course, having your own sets of these things will save you a tremendous amount of money in the long run if you can manage and maintain all your hedges yourself with these tools. However, some of us simply don't want to, therefore not essential. Something that a lot of you haven't seen yet, and I don't think at all is necessarily essential, is a pitchfork. Large version or even small version. Because I truly think that a shovel can more or less achieve the same thing. If you do have a lot of soil to turn, you're finding that the shovel is too cumbersome or not light enough when it comes to doing things like turning your compost heap, then I will perhaps bump the pitchfork up into the essential category. But I do think its tasks are replaced by other things that we have, so therefore not essential. And there we have it. That is what I truly think are the non-essential and essential items that will pretty much cover every single thing that you can possibly do in a garden. In fact, I think ultimately I could narrow this down even further. Every gardener requires 4 things: secateurs, a shovel, gloves, and patience. Ultimately, patience will be your biggest tool in your toolbox when it comes to gardening. Things take a while. They take years and years. No oak was ever considered fully matured or grown in a year, or 2, or 5, or 10, or 15, or even 100. So amongst all those essential things, remember, especially if you're just starting out, you want to create a beautiful garden immediately. You want to wake up one morning and just see an entire meadow or back garden just full of flowers, large shrubs, trees, birds singing. It will take time. There is no tool that I could give you in this list that will make up for that, or that will fix that, or will make that part of gardening any easier. So in the next video, we will cover everything that you need to know about your soil and your site. What parts of your garden are sunny, what's your soil like, and what to do about it before you even start creating your borders. So if you would like to watch that video, make sure that you click the subscribe button down below, like as well, and leave a comment to help the algorithm. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, or if you think that I missed anything, please, again, let me know, leave a comment down below, and I'll be happy to get back to you. So until the next one, cheerio.